Hey, what's going on, guys? At UFC Vegas 84, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker 2, we saw some disgraceful performances, and I'm going to give my opinion on who deserves to be cut from the UFC after their performance on this card. I'm going to start with one honorable mention, which almost ended up making it on the list, and then I'm going to get into my actual list, and I'm going to end with who I believe most deserves to be cut from the UFC. And number one on this list is a complete disgrace, and they absolutely infuriated me on this card. But let's start off with my first and only honorable mention, and that is Tom Nolan. Tom Nolan made his UFC debut coming off of Dana White's Contender Series. He gets a layup in Nicholas Mota. The UFC thought, oh, he'll beat Nicholas Mota. And he goes out there and gets brutally chinned in a little over a minute into the first round by Nicholas Mota. That's a horrible start to a UFC career. And honestly, it just goes to show a lot of these guys coming in off Dana White's Contender Series don't belong in the UFC. I mean, Nicholas Mota is literally bottom of the barrel. Lost to Trey Ogden in his last fight, got saved by an incompetent referee. And I really, truly do believe the UFC was looking at Tom Nolan, like, okay, we can build this guy up. He's from Australia, and we're trying to build up that market. And they booked him with Nicholas Mota. Nicholas Mota goes out there and chins him in the first minute of the first round. You know, if it wasn't his UFC debut, if he wasn't 23 years old, if he wasn't only 6-0 coming into this fight, now he's 6-1, he would have been on the list. I feel bad for him, though. I feel like a lot of these guys in the UFC's desperation to fill cards, they get thrown in the UFC too early because the UFC just signs warm bodies. And Tom Nolan just paid the price against Nicholas Mota, which I never expected. Nicholas Mota is literally bottom of the barrel. For Tom Nolan to go out there undefeated and get chinned by one of the worst fighters on the UFC roster, that's got to be a tough pill to swallow for Tom Nolan. But I think he should get one more opportunity maybe just because it was his UFC debut. But it's not a good start to his career. But that's why he's an honorable mention. Moving on to my actual list, starting off with my first cut, and that is Weston Wilson. He got absolutely destroyed by Gian Silva, TKO'd in the first round. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, never won in the UFC. Came in on short notice, got Joe Anderson Brito, got destroyed in the first round there. I feel bad for this guy. He's 34 years old. He doesn't belong fighting guys like Joe Anderson Brito or Gian Silva even, you know. He was fighting, kind of bottom of the barrel guys outside of the organization as well. I mean, wins over guys 8-5, 4-3. I mean, 3 fights ago, or 3 MMA fights ago, because he has a boxing match, he beat a guy who was 9-19. Before that, he lost to a guy who was 11-9. And he's getting thrown in here in the UFC against Joe Anderson Brito. Got demolished there. Then against Gian Silva, gets demolished there. And the beating was hard to watch. I mean, when I'm watching a fight and I'm feeling really, really bad for the guy who's losing, that's not UFC caliber. Weston Wilson was never UFC caliber. They just wanted him for a short notice fight. They didn't want to cut him after one short notice fight. And now, he's 16-9 overall. That's his record. And he's just getting bodied by guys who aren't even ranked. I feel bad for Weston Wilson, but he's never getting another opportunity. I believe, probably he does get cut by the UFC. He's just not UFC caliber. He got absolutely destroyed in this fight. And I believe Gian Silva was making his UFC debut, if I'm not mistaken. So, Weston Wilson, it's time for him to get cut. Maybe he can go back and fight, Kentucky State Fair, $250 in a funnel cake, something along those lines, and actually get some wins and not take a whole lot of damage. And, I just, when I'm watching some of these guys, I feel so bad when they're just getting just absolutely bludgeoned. And that's kind of what we've watched with Weston Wilson's last 2 fights. Moving up on my list, next up, and I don't feel good about this one at all, is Andrei Arlovski. It's time. It's time, Andrei Arlovski. You're 44 years old. And maybe the UFC can talk to him and he can retire. Maybe, they can just not resign. I don't know, man. Andrei Arlovski, I don't want to watch him fight anymore. He's just stinking up the arena every time out. And he's losing to low-level heavyweights. And heavyweight is a horrible division. Heavyweight is the worst division in the UFC. Waldo Cortez Acosta goes out there, and we get a disgraceful performance by both guys. It's a shit fight. And, Andrei Arlovski just had no urgency. Didn't even try to kick the leg of Waldo Cortez Acosta, who can't check a leg kick to save his life. Before that, got chinned by Dontel Mays, who's literally a bum. Before that, gets finished by Marcos Rogerio de Lima. His last 2 wins are split decisions against Jake Collier and Jarrett Vandera. Need I say more? When's the last time he's got a decent win? I mean, brutalized by Tom Aspinall. Beat Carlos Felipe, Chase Sherman. I'm going out of order here because I was looking at a loss there. But when's the last time he's got a finish? Yeah, this is bad. This is really bad, guys. I don't even know. He has not got a finish since the Travis Brown fight at UFC 287 or 187. UFC 187 is the last time he got a finish, unless I'm looking at this wrong. Yeah, so he's a decision machine. That's crazy. I remember that. If you have not seen Andrei Arlovski versus Travis Brown, go back and rewatch that. That was a wild, crazy fight at 187. But yeah, I mean, look at his career. He came back in the UFC. His chin was gone for a while. And I don't want to go too much on a diatribe about Andrei Arlovski. His chin was gone for a while. He was getting KO'd. He was in, Strike Force. At one second, he was in World Series of Fighting, and he kind of had a resurgence there. Then he got re-signed to the UFC. Came in, got a win over Brendan Schaub, win over Antonio Silva, win over Travis Brown, win over Frank Mir. And then all of a sudden, he gets a fight against Stipe Miocic. And at this point in time, people were talking about Andrei Arlovski getting a title shot. Gets brutalized by Stipe. Gets a fight against Andrei Arlovski. I'm sorry, I'm dumb. Then gets a fight against Alistair Overeem. Gets brutalized by Alistair Overeem. Then gets a fight against Josh Barnett. Gets finished by Josh Barnett. Then gets a fight against Francis Ngannou. Gets chinned by Francis Ngannou. So at one point, he's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 fights in a row, 4 losses, all via finish. Then fights Marcin Tybura. Loses a pretty clear decision there. Then he goes back on a 2-fight winning streak. Decision wins. Then 2 losses again, 3 losses again, then a win, then a loss, then 2 wins, then a loss again. Then he resurgence against the bums of the heavyweight division, a 4-fight winning streak. And now he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Andrei Arlovski does not belong in the UFC anymore. I mean, how many times has he been chinned? He's been chinned 12 times in his career. He's been around forever. It's time for him to retire. I don't want to see Andrei Arlovski anymore. He's not exciting anymore. He's just showing up for paychecks. I can't watch it anymore. Send him to the Kentucky State Fair as well. Moving on. I don't want to spend too much time on Andrei Arlovski. Moving on to my next cut, and that is Matthew Semelsberger. He just doesn't have any fight IQ. He just doesn't have fight IQ. Loses to Preston Parson. Got dominated the entire fight. Got out-grappled, outstruck. Got kicked to the body repeatedly throughout the fight. Got taken down repeatedly. He's clinching when his corner's telling him to strike. He's striking when his corner's telling him to clinch. The Udosh Medic fight could have had a finish multiple times there, but following him to the ground after he hurts him. Same thing with the Jeremiah Wells fight. Literally, he could have been on a 2-fight winning or 3-fight winning streak heading into this fight. And honestly, I'm angry at Matthew Semelsberger. He had us convinced that he was good after beating Jake Matthews, who Jake Matthews looked like a world beater after beating Andre Fialho, who was on a decent streak. And then Matthew Semelsberger derails Jake Matthews. And you're like, wait a second, Matthew Semelsberger might be good. And then he's borderline almost finishing Jeremiah Wells, but he keeps making bad decisions. And he does the same thing against Udosh Medic. And now he loses to Preston Parsons. 3-fight losing streak. Got finished in one of them. Horrible fight IQ in all of them. I think it's time to cut him, and he's lost 4 out of his last 5. His only win is the Jake Matthews fight. And look at the guys he's beaten. Jake Matthews, AJ Fletcher, Martin Sano. These aren't great wins by any means. So I think it's time. I feel bad about this one, to be honest, because Matthew Semelsberger is kind of fun to watch. He's from Maryland as well. I can't watch it anymore. I can't watch the horrible decision-making, the horrible fight IQ. And where does he go from here now? I mean, Preston Parsons is not like the top of the division by any means. So I just don't even know where Matthew Semelsberger goes from here. He just has good power, and that's really it. Decent stamina. No fight IQ at all. Literally no fight IQ. So I think it's time for the UFC to cut Matthew Semelsberger. Moving up on my list, and this is actually second to last on my list, and this one actually really breaks my heart. I don't feel good about any of these. Except the last one I'll feel good about, actually. This one breaks my heart, and that is Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes got brutalized by Bruno Ferreira. And again, man, the way Phil Hawes is getting knocked out is scary. I'm praying, thoughts and prayers to Phil Hawes and his family. And I'm not kidding at all. The way he's getting dropped and the way he's getting KO'd is hard to watch. And this is 3 straight times. Bruno Ferreira, Ikram Aliskerov, Roman Dolidze. And then he got a win against Deron Wynn, which, literally means nothing. And then his last fight before that against Chris Curtis got brutally chinned there as well. So Phil Hawes, his chin isn't there. And it's hard to watch. And the way he's falling is Phil Hawes is the definition of a dead body at this point. And I feel bad because he does have some okay skills. But he's 35 years old. He's getting chinned every time a tumbleweed blows by. And I just feel like is it really worth it? The brain damage, the CTE that Phil Hawes is collecting? He's really collecting CTE. That's what Phil Hawes is doing. He's 12-6 now. And it's like every time he goes out there, his chin just gets touched and then he goes to sleep. And this was a late stoppage too. Bruno Ferreira chins him, drops him, and then follows up with 3 nasty ground and pound shots. I can't watch this anymore. I mean, the Ikram Alaskarov KO was nasty as well. The Roman Dolidze loss was nasty. The Chris Curtis loss was nasty. How many times are we going to have to watch Phil Hall's brains get turned to mush on a main card even? You know, I think this was on the main card, wasn't it? Or no? Yeah, it was on the main card. I can't watch this anymore, guys. I don't know about you. I feel horrible for Phil Hawes. I hope he can, you know, maybe he can go fight lesser opponents in other organizations and, you know, not get brutally chinned. But it's hard to compete. And I can't imagine the psychological games that it plays with you, knowing you have a massive off button right on your chin. That's what Phil Hawes has. I can't watch this anymore. This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing to the sport. I mean, brain damage after brain damage after brain damage every single fight, and then some of these are late stoppages. I can't watch it anymore. Phil Hawes needs to be cut by the organization. His chin is completely gone, and it's truly sad to watch. Moving up on my list to my very last cut, and you're probably wondering who this is. You're like, Joe, you're probably thinking about the card, and like, Joe, you've gone through everyone who's really lost badly on this card. Who's number one? Number one on this list is somebody who won at UFC Vegas 84. And that is Waldo Cortez Acosta, who beat Andrei Arlovski. This guy is a garbage can. This guy is horrific to watch. This guy is a bum. This guy is a trash can. I don't wish to watch this clown fight anymore. Why? Why? And you know what? Could cut Manel Kopp as well for forcing Waldo Cortez Acosta on the main card. Because watching him versus Arlovski was a complete and utter disgrace to the sport. It was a horrible fight, and you had Waldo Cortez Acosta literally barely landing, and then he's taunting like he's out there putting on a masterclass performance against the dead body, the ghost of Andrei Arlovski. And Waldo Cortez Acosta is literally acting like, oh, this is some world-class performance. Let me hump the air and do all these different taunts. You're taunting a legend like Andrei Arlovski, who's clearly just showing up for checks, and you can't even put him away like Dontel Mace, who isn't even good. This was a disgraceful performance, and Waldo Cortez Acosta doesn't even know how to check a leg kick. So why even have him in the organization at all? I mean, he got a win over Lucas Stresky in his last fight. Was getting his leg chopped up in that fight, I think, as well. The Marcos Rogerio de Lima fight, lost via decision, got his legs chopped there. I mean, look at his wins. Chase Sherman, Jarrett Van Dare. This guy is bottom of the barrel heavyweight. Absolute bottom of the barrel heavyweight. I have no desire to ever see him fight again. And if he's on another main card, and this is why I made a video recently. I want you to go check it out. It's in the description. I hate UFC 299 and I hate UFC 300. And the reason I hate those cards already, and 298, you can lump it in there as well. Those cards are incredibly stacked, right? But they're so stacked that now after 299, 300, they're going to be garbage Apex cards. Like right after UFC 299, there's 3 garbage Apex cards. And the reason I'm even getting into this is because Waldo Cortez Acosta ends up on the main cards of these shit cards. I mean, Waldo Cortez Acosta goes out there almost every single fight and puts on a shit-stained performance. And I don't know if you could have put on much more of a shit-stained performance than against Andrei Arlovski, who's literally a dead body. Waldo Cortez Acosta, you could arguably score it for Andrei Arlovski. Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I thought Arlovski won the second round. You know, against a 44-year-old Andrei Arlovski, you're 32 years old, you're dancing, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm the salsa boy. I'm the salsa boy. Well, go salsa dance at the Kentucky State Fair. That's where Waldo Cortez Acosta belongs. He's a disgrace to the sport. It was a shit performance. The heavyweight division is horrible, and he's not even ranked in the heavyweight division, which is the rankings are even horrible. The top 15 outside of the top 7 is like shit fighter after shit fighter, and Waldo Cortez Acosta can't even keep up with them. So you know what? If they don't cut him, which they probably won't because right now he's on a 2-fight winning streak, give him a test. Please, UFC, give Waldo Cortez Acosta a test. Put him against Alexander Volkov for all I care. I would love to see this guy get brutalized and get finished. He's a bum. He's dancing in there taunting when he's not even fighting well. And he does not belong in the UFC. The heavyweight division is garbage. Now, in terms of who I actually think gets cut, Waldo Cortez Acosta is going to be saved for more main cards of Apex cards. Phil Hawes probably gets cut. Matthew Semmelsberger probably gets cut. Andrei Arlovski probably is encouraged to retire or gets cut. and Weston Wilson probably gets cut. Tom Nolan gets another opportunity. So everyone on this list except Waldo probably gets cut, except Tom Nolan as well, who's an honorable mention. So he's not even really on the list. So let me know what you guys think of the list down in the comments. Am I being too hard? Am I being too hard on Waldo Cortez Acosta? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.